6 Stoic ways to defeat your enemy without fighting them. Imagine this. You're faced with an enemy, someone who's constantly trying to undermine you, provoke you, or challenge your every move. They throw insults, spread rumors, or even try to sabotage your success. The instinct is there, right? But what if I told you that you could destroy your enemy without lifting a finger? Without ever engaging in a fight, physical or verbal? What if you could completely defeat them in a way they never saw coming? Welcome to the world of Stoicism, a philosophy that's been practiced by some of history's greatest minds, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca to Epictetus. Stoicism teaches us that the ultimate power lies not in how we react to others, but in how we control ourselves. It's not about fighting fire with fire or sinking to the level of those who seek to harm us. In fact, Stoicism shows us that true strength comes from within, and the most effective way to win a battle is often by not fighting at all. In this video, I'll be sharing with you 6 powerful Stoic principles that will help you destroy your enemies without ever laying a finger on them. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're practical strategies you can use in your everyday life, whether you're dealing with toxic colleagues, manipulative friends, or any situation where you feel attacked. These principles are timeless, tested by some of the toughest minds in history, and they've proven to be just as effective today as they were in ancient Rome. You'll learn how to understand your enemy's nature, not by reacting to them, but by observing and learning their weaknesses, how to embrace indifference and turn their attacks into a source of your strength. You'll see how silence can be a far more powerful weapon than words, how living a life of virtue can render your enemies powerless, and how adopting the role of the observer allows you to remain unshaken in the face of adversity. And finally, you'll understand why time, patience, and waiting are often the most destructive tools at your disposal, tools your enemy can't even begin to comprehend. The beauty of Stoicism is that it empowers you to rise above conflict, to transcend the chaos, and to become the calm in the storm. So no matter what you're up against, remember this: you don't need to fight to win. In fact, by following these 6 Stoic strategies, you'll find that your enemy may end up defeating themselves, all while you stand firmly grounded in your own power, calm, and wisdom. Are you ready to learn how to master the art of conquering your enemies without ever fighting them? Let's dive in. Number 1. Understand the enemy's nature. Before you can defeat your enemy, you first have to understand them. I'm not talking about understanding their motives so you can mirror their actions or figure out how to fight back. No, that's not the Stoic way. Instead, it's about recognizing that your enemy is driven by their own fears, desires, and limitations, just like you. The Stoics were clear on this. Everyone is shaped by their own inner world, and the way others behave is often more about them than it is about you. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "We are disturbed not by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." In other words, the enemy's actions are not inherently harmful to you. What harms you is how you interpret those actions and respond to them. When someone insults you or tries to hurt you, it's not their words or deeds that really cause harm. It's the emotional reaction you allow to grow inside you. By recognizing that your enemy is acting out of their own ignorance, fear, or desire for power, you can begin to see the situation from a higher perspective. They are not necessarily a villain. They're just another human being caught in the same struggles and weaknesses we all face. By understanding this, you take away their power to control you. You see them not as an adversary to defeat, but as a person who, like you, is grappling with their own issues. Instead of responding with anger, resentment, or the desire for revenge, you can remain calm and collected, knowing that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth. In this way, you don't let their weaknesses or insecurities shake your peace. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his Meditations, "When you are troubled by the behavior of someone, remember that it is a common thing, and not only for you, but for all human beings to do so." This insight teaches you that conflict is universal. It's not something that's personally directed at you, even though it may feel that way. It's part of the human condition, and by accepting this, you no longer take their behavior as a personal attack. So, how does this apply to your daily life? Let's say you're dealing with a colleague who's constantly undermining you at work, or a friend who never seems to have your best interest at heart. Instead of reacting with frustration or anger, you can step back and try to understand why they act the way they do. What fears or insecurities are motivating them? Are they trying to assert power over you because they feel powerless in their own life? Are they insecure and lashing out in an attempt to protect their fragile ego? The more you understand the source of their actions, the less their behavior will disturb you. When you approach your enemy, whether it's a person, a situation, or even your own negative thoughts with the mindset of understanding rather than reacting, you've already won. You've neutralized their power over you by recognizing that they are not a... Number 2. Embrace the power of indifference. One of the most potent weapons in Stoic philosophy is the concept of indifference. The Stoics believed that, as human beings, we have little control over the external events that happen to us, but we have absolute control over how we respond to them. If we allow external events like insults, criticism, or attacks to affect our peace of mind, then we've handed our power over to the person or situation that's trying to harm us. But if we practice indifference to those external things, we maintain control over ourselves and our inner world. Indifference, according to Stoic wisdom, is not about apathy or detachment from life. It's about recognizing that the things outside of your control, like other people's behavior, do not deserve to disrupt your inner peace. As Marcus Aurelius put it, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When you practice indifference, you stop letting other people's opinions, actions, or judgments determine your emotional state. Think about it. When someone attacks you, what they're really doing is trying to manipulate you. They want to provoke a reaction. If you get angry, frustrated, or defensive, you've given them exactly what they wanted. You've allowed their behavior to control your emotions. But when you practice Stoic indifference, you deny them that power. You remain unshaken, unaffected by their attempts to provoke you. And in doing so, you completely disarm them. Indifference doesn't mean you ignore the situation or avoid conflict. It means you detach emotionally from the outcome. It means you respond with rationality, not emotion. For example, if a colleague at work spreads a false rumor about you, your instinct might be to defend yourself or lash out. But the Stoic response would be to realize that their actions are not about you. They're about them. You don't need to defend your honor because your peace of mind is not dependent on their opinion of you. You can choose not to engage, to let their words bounce off you like water off a duck's back. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent to all people. It's about having the wisdom to know what's worth your emotional energy and what isn't. You can still be compassionate and caring without letting the opinions or actions of others disturb your inner peace. Stoics like Epictetus taught that the only thing truly in your control is your own mind and reactions. If you allow others to dictate how you feel, you've surrendered your control to them. In a practical sense, this indifference can be a powerful way to destroy your enemy without fighting. When you stop reacting to their attacks, you take away their power. When they can't get under your skin, they lose their ability to manipulate or provoke you. It's a form of emotional armor, and it's more effective than any retaliation or defensive stance you could take. Your enemy may expect you to react, to engage, to lower yourself to their level. But when you remain indifferent to their provocations, you not only preserve your inner peace, you expose their weakness. Indifference is about recognizing that your peace is more important than any external conflict. It's a reminder that your worth is not defined by others' opinions or actions. By practicing indifference, you become invincible in the face of your enemy. Number 3. Master the art of silence. In a world where everyone feels the need to be heard, silence can be your most powerful weapon. Stoics understood that words, while necessary at times, often have the potential to escalate conflict or reveal a lack of self-control. When it comes to dealing with enemies, whether they're verbally attacking you, trying to provoke you, or simply being manipulative, sometimes the most effective response is no response at all. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, advised that we should be silent or speak only what is necessary. Silence, in the Stoic sense, is not just the absence of sound. It is the deliberate act of withholding reaction, especially in moments of conflict, when your enemy expects you to engage, to argue, or to fight back. Silence can be the most disarming thing you can offer. By refusing to rise to the bait, you deny them the satisfaction of drawing you into their drama. But why does silence work so effectively? For one, it throws your enemy off balance. People expect conflict, especially when they're trying to provoke you. When you respond with silence, they don't know how to react. They might begin to doubt themselves, second-guess their tactics, or even feel exposed for their own insecurity or immaturity. Your silence can reflect back their own behavior, highlighting their attempts to manipulate or control you without you ever saying a word. Epictetus, in his teachings, often emphasized that we cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how we respond. And sometimes responding means not responding at all. Silence strips away the emotional fuel that keeps a conflict alive. When you stay silent, you stop feeding the fire of confrontation. You allow the situation to diffuse on its own, without adding any more heat to it. Think of a time when you were attacked verbally, perhaps by a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger. The natural response might have been to defend yourself, to justify your actions, or to lash back with a retort. But consider how different the outcome might have been if you had simply remained quiet. The attacker would have had no reaction to build upon. They would have been left talking to themselves, trying to find meaning in their own words, without you as the mirror. In a world that rewards quick reactions and sharp comebacks, choosing silence takes strength. It shows that you are not swayed by the noise around you. You remain composed, grounded, and in control. Silence is not a retreat. It's a strategic maneuver. It's a form of self-discipline that prevents you from getting dragged into the petty back and forth of emotional exchanges. Silence also communicates a profound message, that you do not need to justify your worth or explain yourself. It shows your enemy that you are above the situation. You don't need to engage in their games, because your peace is more important than any temporary victory or petty argument. In this way, silence becomes an expression of your power, your self-control, and your resilience. The more you practice the art of silence, the more you'll realize its power. It is not a sign of weakness, but of immense strength. You don't need to answer every insult or challenge. Sometimes, the most powerful response is simply no response at all. Number 4. Use virtue as your shield. At the core of Stoic philosophy lies the idea of virtue, living a life of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These virtues aren't just lofty ideals or moral principles. They are practical tools for navigating the challenges of life, especially when dealing with enemies. When you embody these virtues, they become your shield, your armor, and your weapon in the battle of life. And the best part, your enemies can't touch them. Let's break this down. Virtue, according to the Stoics, is the highest good. It's the one thing that is entirely within your control. Everything else, wealth, status, physical power, even relationships, are external and beyond your full influence. But your ability to live virtuously, that's yours. By aligning your actions with Stoic virtues, you become impervious to the influence of those who seek to undermine you. Take wisdom, for example. Wisdom allows you to see through the fog of emotional turmoil and recognize the deeper causes behind your enemy's actions. It helps you to detach from the conflict and view it with clarity. Wisdom gives you the ability to act in accordance with reason, not impulse. When someone attacks you, wisdom allows you to see that their words or actions are more about them than about you. You know that reacting emotionally only adds fuel to the fire. So you choose to act wisely, preserving your peace and dignity. Then there's courage. Courage isn't just about facing physical dangers. It's about standing firm in your convictions and doing what's right, even when others try to pressure you into doing otherwise. Your enemy may try to intimidate you, manipulate you, or bully you into submission. But with courage, you stand your ground. You refuse to let their actions dictate your behavior. You don't have to fight them back with aggression. You simply stand firm in your virtue and your commitment to doing what is right. The moment you refuse to compromise on your values, you've already won. Justice is another Stoic virtue that serves as an essential part of your defensive strategy. Justice doesn't mean seeking revenge or getting back at those who wrong you. Instead, it means recognizing that everyone has their own struggles, their own ignorance, and their own flaws. It's about treating others fairly, even if they don't treat you the same way. By practicing justice, you rise above the petty attacks of your enemy and maintain your integrity. You don't need to stoop to their level. You act with fairness and dignity, regardless of how they behave toward you. Finally, temperance gives you the ability to control your impulses and desires. It's about knowing when to speak, when to act, and when to stay quiet or step away. When you practice temperance, you're not swayed by your emotions. You control your responses, ensuring that you never act out of anger, frustration, or resentment. This self-control not only protects your peace of mind, but also prevents you from falling into the trap of reacting emotionally to every slight or provocation. By living in alignment with these Stoic virtues, you create a strong moral foundation that no one can shake. Your enemies may try to undermine your reputation, attack your character, or provoke you into conflict. But when you are rooted in virtue, their attacks will have no power over you. In fact, they may end up exposing their own flaws, while your commitment to virtue only makes you stronger in the eyes of others. Using virtue as your shield doesn't mean you'll avoid conflict altogether. It means that when conflict arises, you'll face it with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. And in doing so, you'll find that the enemy's power over you is diminished, because the enemy's goal is often to get you to act out of fear, anger, or greed. When you refuse to let these passions dictate your actions, you deny them their victory. You've destroyed them, not by fighting back, but by refusing to let them take you away from the path of virtue. In a world where many people fight for power, status, and recognition, the Stoic path is one of humility, integrity, and inner strength. When you stand firmly in your virtues, you become untouchable, not because you've defeated others, but because you've mastered yourself, and that is the greatest victory of all. Number 5. Adopt the role of the observer. In any conflict, especially one involving an enemy, the temptation is often to become emotionally involved, to get caught up in the drama. We want to react, to defend, to explain, and perhaps even to win the argument. But the Stoics offer us a different perspective: the role of the observer. The Stoic idea of being an observer comes from the belief that much of life's turmoil is a result of our emotional attachment to it. The more you become emotionally entangled in a conflict, the more you lose your inner peace, the more you lose control over the situation, and ultimately, the more power you give your enemy over you. The more we let ourselves be pulled into the chaos, the more we feed into it. To adopt the role of the observer is to recognize that you don't need to be part of the conflict. You don't need to get drawn into the negative emotions that arise from another person's behavior. Instead, you can simply watch the events unfold as though you were an impartial bystander, understanding that these events are transient and do not define you. By stepping back and observing the situation without emotional involvement, you gain the clarity needed to respond in a way that aligns with your values and Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoic figures, practiced this mindset throughout his reign as Emperor of Rome. He often reflected on the importance of seeing life from a broader perspective, recognizing that each challenge and each conflict is just one small piece of a much larger picture. In his meditations, he wrote, "Take a step back and consider your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions as though they were the actions and thoughts of someone else." This idea of stepping back and distancing yourself from the heat of the moment allows you to act more rationally and without bias. When you become the observer, you stop seeing your enemy as a personal threat. Instead, you see them as just another person, one who is also dealing with their own internal struggles, fears, and insecurities. The problem is no longer them versus you. It's simply part of the larger flow of life. The more you step back and adopt this perspective, the less power your enemy has over you, because they are no longer the focal point of your world. In practical terms, this means you don't let the actions or words of your enemy dictate your mood or behavior. When someone tries to insult you, for example, you don't react immediately with anger or frustration. Instead, you observe the situation. What is their intention? What are they trying to achieve? Why do I feel this way? By creating space between the event and your emotional reaction, you can think clearly and choose your response with wisdom and composure. This doesn't mean you condone or accept their behavior. Rather, it means you don't allow it to disrupt your mental and emotional equilibrium. By observing the situation instead of participating in it, you can rise above the drama and prevent it from affecting your peace of mind. By adopting the role of the observer, you align yourself with the Stoic belief that external events, including the actions of your enemies, are beyond your control. What is within your control is how you choose to interpret those events and how you choose to respond. This detached perspective gives you the power to neutralize any enemy's influence without ever getting caught in the whirlwind of conflict. Number 6. Know that time is your greatest ally. In Stoic philosophy, time plays a crucial role in the process of overcoming adversity and defeating one's enemies. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the fleeting nature of life and the insignificance of most of the things that seem urgent or problematic in the moment. He wrote, "Time is a river of passing events, and we must let go of our attachment to things as they come and go." In essence, time is both a healer and a teacher, and understanding its power can help you destroy your enemy without ever needing to fight them directly. One of the most profound aspects of Stoicism is the belief that everything is temporary. including conflict. When you realize that time will eventually reveal the true nature of any situation, you no longer feel the urgency to act impulsively or to confront your enemy head-on. Patience becomes your ally. The enemy, if left unchecked, will often expose their true nature over time, making it easier for you to see that their attacks are hollow or that their behavior is rooted in their own insecurities. In this way, time allows you to gain the upper hand without ever needing to physically or verbally engage. The Stoics believed in practicing patience, not as passivity, but as a form of strength. Instead of rushing into a confrontation or feeling compelled to defend yourself immediately, you can wait and watch how the situation unfolds. This waiting time allows you to maintain emotional distance, assess the situation more clearly, and choose a response that is aligned with your inner values rather than reacting out of fear or anger. In practical terms, this could mean letting time pass when someone is trying to provoke you or create conflict. Instead of feeling like you need to defend yourself right away or retaliate, you can give it time. You'll often find that time exposes the enemy's weaknesses or forces them to reveal their true intentions. Perhaps they'll make an even bigger mistake in the future, or perhaps they'll simply lose interest, realizing that they cannot provoke you. By allowing time to work on your behalf, you create space for the truth to emerge. You also protect your own peace of mind. When you're not in a rush to win or fight back, you give yourself the luxury of clarity and calm, and this gives you a significant advantage in any conflict. Moreover, time often allows for natural resolution. In many cases, people who seem like enemies eventually move on or shift their focus. Those who are driven by ego, jealousy, or insecurity are often unable to sustain their efforts for long. In this way, time becomes a natural force that works in your favor, helping you outlast the conflict without needing to engage in battle. By the time your enemy reveals their true nature, you may find that they've already alienated themselves or undermined their own position. In the meantime, you've remained calm, rational, and unwavering, strengthened by the patience that Stoicism teaches. Ultimately, time doesn't just destroy your enemy. It allows you to see the situation clearly, to act wisely, and to realize that most conflicts are transient. When you embrace this truth, you're no longer controlled by the urgency to confront every problem immediately. Instead, you understand that the most powerful response to conflict is often the patient, graceful act of waiting it out, knowing that time will ultimately reveal the outcome. Conclusion. The true victory is in mastery of self. As we've explored throughout this journey, the Stoic path is not one of external victory, but of internal mastery. The 6 principles we've discussed: understanding your enemy's nature, embracing indifference, mastering silence, living virtuously, adopting the role of the observer, and trusting in the power of time are not just tactics for defeating others, but ways to strengthen and refine your own character. True power, according to Stoic wisdom, does not come from domination or revenge. It comes from mastering yourself. The beauty of Stoic philosophy is that it empowers you to rise above the petty dramas of life and focus on what truly matters: your peace of mind, your integrity, and your inner calm. By practicing these principles, you stop giving away your power to the people and situations that seek to provoke you. You reclaim your energy, your focus, and your sense of self. When you understand that your enemy's behavior is often a reflection of their own struggles, you no longer take their attacks personally. You can view them as people who, like you, are caught in their own web of emotions, desires, and fears. Instead of being a victim of their actions, you can stand outside the drama, untouched and undisturbed. This shift in perspective alone can make you invincible in the face of hostility. Indifference, silence, and virtue are tools of emotional resilience. They prevent you from being manipulated by the external world, which, as the Stoics teach us, is often beyond our control. Through these practices, you learn not only to manage your reactions, but to recognize that your happiness does not depend on what others do to you. It depends on how you choose to respond to them. The observer role encourages you to detach from the moment and see things from a higher vantage point. When you step back and observe, you allow yourself the space to act thoughtfully, not impulsively. This distance helps you choose the wiser course of action, one that aligns with your Stoic values rather than reacting out of anger, fear, or insecurity. It turns conflict into a learning experience rather than a battle to win. And, of course, time is your greatest ally. Life moves at its own pace, and often the best thing you can do is wait for the dust to settle. Time exposes the truth. It reveals your enemy's true intentions. It allows for the wisdom of experience to emerge. What seems urgent and threatening in the moment often fades away with time. Those who try to tear you down may end up alienating themselves, revealing their true character in the process. By letting time do its work, you ensure that you are never forced into an emotional reaction, but instead can act from a place of calm deliberation. Ultimately, the Stoic approach to dealing with enemies is about reclaiming your inner peace and refusing to be drawn into the cycle of external conflict. In a world that thrives on drama and confrontation, Stoicism offers a powerful antidote, a path that leads to greater strength, wisdom, and resilience. So, when faced with an enemy, whether in the form of a person, a situation, or even your own negative thoughts, remember that true victory is not about defeating others. It is about defeating the impulse to react, to escalate, or to sink to the level of those who seek to bring you down. It is about maintaining your composure, your virtue, and your sense of self, no matter what external forces come your way. In the end, by practicing these Stoic principles, you will find that your enemies have no power over you, not because you have defeated them, but because you have mastered the one thing you can always control, yourself. This is the true essence of Stoic wisdom, and in this, you will find a peace and a strength that no enemy, no matter how relentless, can ever touch.